Hey everyone, welcome back to the Critic-Verse. Today we're going to continue reviewing Superman and Lois with Season 3, Episode 6, titled Of Sound Mind. Now, before we get to the review, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help grow the channel and build a community here. Now, on to the review. The episode once again is titled Of Sound Mind. This title is in reference to the will that Lois makes as a just in case things don't go their way. Of sound mind is a common phrase people incorporate into the opening lines of their wills, usually to indicate that they made the decisions on what to do with their estate of their own free will and without coercion. It also may be referring to the reveal of onomatopoeia, which I can admit that I was wrong about, and the reveal did surprise me, but I'll wait to talk on that. Clark joins a support group for spouses of people with cancer, and it looks like the group has the opposite effect on Clark, even though he doesn't say it. Just the look on his face tells that it's not working, and he doesn't even use any words to explain it or express it. Mannheim holds up on his end of the bargain that he made with Lois from last episode and supplies her with all the files she might need for her investigation. But it's also Bruno's attempt to show her that there's nothing shady going on at Hobbs Bay. One of the fellow chemo patients offers to take her out to eat before her taste buds have gone away through her 4th chemo treatment, and to also ask her anything she wants about Hobbs Bay, seeing that she's been there for a while. Sophie, Lana and Kyle's other child, makes an appearance after being gone a number of episodes. I was starting to think that Sarah was an only child for a while. Chrissy is still seeing Kyle right under Lana's nose, and even though Chrissy has begun to work more closely with Lana, taking more interviews with the mayor, Chrissy doesn't feel great about sneaking around and wants to go public with their relationship, but Kyle doesn't want to, saying that it's too soon after the divorce and he doesn't want to hurt his kids. Jonathan has started volunteering at the firehouse, and he's given a shirt with someone else's name on it. And Jordan flies in to interrupt Jonathan, and it won't be the only time in this episode. It's been revealed that this episode takes place a month after the previous episode, when Lois says it's been a month since Clark fought Deadline. Turns out, the experiments Mannheim had conducted on Deadline actually spread the cancer all over his body. Deadline asks Superman to take him to Mannheim, but when they get there, Mannheim denies everything and tells Superman he better take DeStefano to a real hospital. But it turns out later DeStefano dies. Sophie feels ignored by both her parents, which almost feels kind of meta, which the writers are touching on, considering this character is sometimes mentioned, but almost never shown. DeStefano had traces of XK in Clark's blood, which we discovered in the previous episode that Intergang had access to. It was in his system, which is how he and Atom Man Henry Miller presumably displayed powers. Jordan walks in covered in mud, having gone to help a flash flood in Utah by himself. But while Clark is angry, it turns out Lois gave Jordan permission because there was no time to reach Clark. Bruno and his doctor talk about how kryptonite in Clark's blood is reanimating the cells from Bizarro's corpse, which could have a promising storyline for a future in the show, but right now it's just Tyler Hoechlin lying on a cold slab, so Bizarro may come back in the future. Deadline's death made Lois consider her own mortality, which makes her create a will and end-of-life decisions, which she says they already should have made these things in spite of her diagnosis. but Clark is on a positivity train and doesn't want to discuss it. Clark goes through the Fortress Simulator with Jordan and puts him in a 2v1 against Atomic Skull, and when he says he already beat him, Clark adds in Bizarro, probably because of recent events. Pia takes Lois out to lunch, and she relates to what Lois is going through with Clark from what she went through with her own husband. But Pia never actually says her husband's name and only refers to him as her husband, which usually in shows indicates that we, the audience, have already met this character, and when they reveal the character to them, to us at least, it should be quite the shock. Jordan and Clark argue, and it's similar to when a parent is teaching their kid to drive, kind of like how Lois had to do at the beginning of the season with Jonathan, but for Jordan, Clark is teaching him on how to be a hero, and it seems what Clark is preparing him for has deeper ramifications if he screws up. Sophie has gone missing, which is on par for the character, but this time it's a part of the plot, and it sort of helps reveal Chrissy and Kyle's relationship to Lana, and you can tell she feels betrayed given how she was confiding in Chrissy earlier in the episode. In this show, arguments really have a way of transferring from character to character, as Clark and Jordan's argument turned into an argument between Lois and Clark about Clark not wanting to prep with Lois for the worst. Jonathan and Sarah bond over being family screw-ups, but John helps Sarah think of where Sophie might be, and once they find her, John is the one to talk to her to bring her back. John and Sophie bond over feeling ignored in favor of their sibling. But it's weird how Kyle and Sarah hang back because, it's not really a dire situation where, if they make one false move, Sophie's life could be in danger. But they make it feel like that. But when John talks Sophie into coming back, John has earned Kyle's respect. While apologizing to Jordan, Clark and Jordan hear Lois calling for help, but it turns out to be Onomatopoeia setting a trap for Superman, with several men armed with kryptonite rifles. After realizing it was a trap, Lois tells Jordan to go and save Clark, and we get the first official look of Jordan in his first super suit. And it looks like a play on Clark's suit from the comic book series Superman American Alien. Jordan dispatches the soldiers with ease, but after being caught off guard, gets hit by a kryptonite blast. But we learn in this episode, Jordan has an immunity to kryptonite. And I don't really think that that's a good thing for the character, considering how arrogant he was earlier in the episode. Jonathan gets home with his very own shirt from the fire station, but Lois is preoccupied worrying about Jordan and Clark that she completely overlooks Jonathan's good news. And once Jordan gets home, he once again overshadows Jonathan in this episode, which is kind of annoying in my opinion. Clark and Lois reconcile, and Clark admits for the first time in his life he feels truly powerless, something he hardly has ever dealt with as Superman. With Kyle and Chrissy being found out by Lana, Kyle makes it official and asks Chrissy to be his girlfriend, which was kind of a sweet moment, but kind of felt like they had really no choice at this point. Then, back at Hobbs Bay, Clark returns to the support group and admits hearing their stories actually scared him rather than helped him. And meanwhile, Lois gets takeout from the restaurant Pia took her to earlier, only to see up on the wall they have a photo of Bruno Mannheim like he's a regular there. But in Bruno's lab, it's also revealed that Onomatopoeia is none other than Pia, and she and Bruno have quite the connection, which will probably prove another theory of mine wrong in the following episode. If you know, you know. Well, this was another emotional episode, but this season has been nothing but spectacular. I'm still not as big of a fan of the Cushing/Cortez drama. Really how they managed to mix in John's personal story and kind of have it parallel to Sophie, a character we barely see, and probably because she's a child actor who can only work so many hours. But it was really nice how those two characters got to connect. And the character of Pia being onomatopoeia, and wow, really should have guessed based off the name alone. But the character isn't the only character reveal that I'm going to be wrong about. And once again, when I talked about Jordan being immune to kryptonite, well, it kind of hurt him, but not as bad as would have Clark. They kind of have a similar storyline in Young Justice for the Connor Kent character, because he's a clone mixed with Superman's DNA and Lex Luthor's DNA, that kryptonite doesn't affect him as it would Superman. And this does happen to comic book Jonathan, which Jordan is kind of the Superman Lois version of that character. But I don't think it's good for him to be immune to kryptonite. But having it be less effective, I guess, works. But anyway, tune in for the next episode review of Superman and Lois. Thanks for joining me in the Critic-Verse. See you guys next time.